Stephanie White is, in fact, trying to turn the Indiana Fever into last year's Connecticut Sun. Stephanie White let it slip. She said she wanted to, let Caitlyn be Caitlyn. And it is very clear her offensive philosophy. It is very clear what Stephanie White is trying to do.
What happens when the perfect plan crumbles? When a dream team, led by a generational talent like Caitlyn Clark, descends into utter chaos instead of championship glory? The Indiana Fever were poised to soar, yet they're imploding. And the shocking truth is, the very coach brought in to save them might now be revealed as the architect of their downfall. This isn't just a story of a disappointing season, it's an expose of how a promising future became a devastating nightmare, and why the Fever are failing Caitlyn Clark at every turn.
Stephanie White and Christy Sides. It's hard to believe we're even bringing up Christy Sides' name, but that's where we are. Why? Because we got Fever fans that are missing her. Last Christy Sides was let go, and we thought we were sold a bill of goods that Stephanie White was going to be this up.
When Stephanie White walked back through the gleaming doors of Gainbridge Fieldhouse as the Indiana Fever's head coach, it felt less like a strategic hiring and more like a preordained coronation. An Indiana native, a revered Purdue star, and the very woman who had already navigated this franchise to the precipice of glory in the 2015 WNBA Finals, what conceivable obstacle could stand in the way of her second act?
It is very, very clear what Stephanie White is trying to do with this team. And what she's trying to do with this team is she wants them to turn into she wants them to be old WNBA. She wants them to be old WNBA. And she wants the team to be what she had success with in Connecticut. She doesn't want this team playing fast. She wants them.
Her return was met with a chorus of universal acclaim, a symphony of praise from every corner of the basketball world. Fans celebrated wildly, analysts lavished praise, and even the most hardened, skeptical observers nodded in unequivocal approval. White, in that shimmering moment, appeared to be the quintessential addition to a Fever team that had just landed the undisputed most hyped rookie in WNBA history. She spoke of liberation, of letting Caitlyn be Caitlyn, yet beneath the surface, her true offensive philosophy, her ingrained strategic vision, began to surface with chilling clarity.
All right, Fever fans, it's time to have a very difficult conversation. One that we don't really want to talk about. The question is, what are we going to do about Stephanie White? A lot of you were screaming, get rid of Christy Sides. For Stephanie White, you were happy, you were excited, you were stoked. But I think Stephanie White has a lot to do with this team's failure.
Her underlying goal, it swiftly became apparent, was to transform this dynamic, record-breaking team into a stark imitation of her past successes, a nostalgic echo of what she'd achieved with a different roster in a different era in Connecticut. This vision meant forcing a slow, deliberate pace onto a roster inherently built for explosive speed and modern innovation. The honeymoon phase, it turned out, was dramatically shorter than anyone could have ever envisioned. And what transpired next would not just surprise, it would fundamentally unravel the very fabric of the team.
And I'm talking about being happy personally. Like, I want her to be happy personally. I mean, there's so many things that go into it. It's a different group. While system might still be very similar, it's a different group, and things are happening quickly. And
I cannot believe, I mean this when I say this, I cannot believe the Indiana Fever had what was the best offense in the WNBA post-Olympic break and hired the coach with the worst offense in WNBA to bring the worst offensive system to the best offensive team. What are we doing? Again, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Stephanie White is...
The first truly fatal misstep came with a jarring suddenness, a move that would prove to be a pivotal, disastrous turning point for the entire season. The Dana Bonner situation. White, armed with her philosophy, brought in this two-time WNBA champion, a veteran presence ostensibly meant to be the final missing piece of a championship puzzle. Bonner was intended to provide invaluable leadership, battle-tested championship experience, and a steady, calming hand for a young roster painstakingly built around the undeniable star power of Caitlyn Clark.
They need to hire an NBA coach like Mark Jackson. And I became the Leo DiCaprio meme holding the beer and the cigarette pointing at the TV because when Christy Sides got fired last year, I said, hire Mark Jackson or Larry Bird. You need a National Basketball Association male coach in there that doesn't give a rip what any of these other women in this league think. Doesn't have a connection to them. None of that. But has a connection to Indiana. Obviously a deep-seated one. Both have coached. Both have done well. Larry's getting long in the tooth. I get it. But he could probably do it for a couple of years. My point was a couple of years. Similar style to Caitlyn Clark's play. And get her into the over the hump of the trials and tribulations of being in a professional league.
Instead, what quickly unfolded was a troubling spectacle of a coaching staff bending over backward, contorting their entire strategic approach to accommodate a player who ultimately seemed to harbor no genuine interest in truly being there. White, with a shocking display of tactical misdirection, fundamentally altered her entire offensive system. She deliberately pivoted away from the high-octane, breathtakingly fast, and devastatingly effective Clark-centric offense that had made the Fever appointment television a must-watch spectacle for millions. In its place, she meticulously installed a more traditional, almost archaic snail-paced system supposedly better suited for Bonner's sensibilities. The result was nothing short of a complete and utter disaster.
Stephanie White has flat out ruined this once great, electrifying, must-see TV Indiana Fever offense. There's no more excuses. It is what it is. And now, it doesn't work. She has broken this offense. I don't know if this is a sabotage job. I don't know what's going on. I don't understand how we went from literally the fastest offense to the slowest to second slowest team in the league. I don't understand how we get 2 fast break points in a game. I don't understand how we have 11 fast break points.
Bonner, after a mere 3 starts out of 9 games played, averaged a measly 7.1 points, a shadow of her former self, and then vanished abruptly for unspecified personal reasons before ultimately requesting her release. The acquisition itself was a gaffe of epic proportions, a bewildering lapse in judgment. But the catastrophic ripple effect it unleashed, fundamentally breaking the team's offensive identity and sidelining its true cornerstone, was the genuine scandal, the camel's back truly snapping. This ill-fated experiment, it turns out, was only the beginning of a cascade of profound struggles for the team.
The pace is too slow. They're doing set play. They're walking up the court. Last year, if you remember, Christy had them running up and down the court. I was one of those people last year in the beginning of the season. I said, Christy Sides got to go. I didn't like the way she managed the game. But when she made it to the playoffs, I thought she deserves another shot with new personnel. I think this team might be better with this skill, with this team, these skilled players, and Christy Sides. Because Christy Sides...
With the ghost of the Dana Bonner debacle still haunting the court, Stephanie White now finds herself trapped, seemingly unable or unwilling to pivot, stuck playing a system that literally doesn't revolve around Caitlyn Clark. The woman who was specifically brought in to be the franchise cornerstone, the generational talent single-handedly selling out arenas and shattering television viewership records, is now being brutally forced to operate within the rigid, suffocating constraints designed for a player who, to put it bluntly, quit on the team. The cold, hard numbers don't lie. They are screaming a story that should terrify every single Fever fan.
Also have questions about, well, was this whole thing mismanaged from the get-go? And I'm talking about the original quad injury, right? Never mind the Stephanie White's style of play. That's clearly not fitting with the personnel. That's not working. So, a byproduct of Stephanie White's latest shortcomings, and yeah, they won the game last night, but they almost blew it in the fourth quarter, just like they blew the game against the Sparks the night before in the fourth quarter. The Fever should have 2 straight victories right now, easily. Actually, 3, because they beat the Storm. They should be on a 3-game heater right.
Clark is averaging solid points and assists, numbers that might look respectable on paper for an ordinary player, but this is a mere shadow of the MVP caliber, electrifying performance everyone expected, and that her college career promised. More concerning, however, is the stark visual evidence unfolding on the court. Clark, who thrived in college by taking over games with audacious logo three-pointers, impossible passes, and an unparalleled court vision, is now being paradoxically asked to operate as a facilitator first, a scorer second. The contrast is chilling. The once blistering high-octane fever offense from post-Olympic break last season, a unit that mesmerized audiences, has been replaced by a slow, almost glacial pace.
There wasn't an explanation for the tech that she got. I think it was pretty obvious that stuff was brewing, right? When the officials don't get control of the ball game, when they allow that stuff to happen, and it's been happening all season long. All season long. It's not just this game. It's been happening all season long. This is what happens, right? This is what happens. You've got competitive women who are the best in the world at what they do, right? And when you allow them to play physical and you allow these things to happen, they're going to compete. And they're going to have their teammates' backs. It's exactly what you expect, right? Out of.
Esteemed basketball minds with decades of experience in the WNBA are not mincing words. Former WNBA executive Lynn Dunn delivered a blistering critique, directly blasting White for overtly holding Caitlyn Clark back, arguing with undeniable conviction that the coach and her star player harbor fundamentally different understandings of the game itself. When seasoned, respected basketball minds, titans in their field, are openly calling out your coaching philosophy, it's not just a sign, it's a deafening alarm bell. Yet, the system woes were not the only insidious danger lurking, looming ominously over the team's most valuable asset.
I don't understand. And it don't take a genius to figure out the formula in which we was running. We was running and gunning, playing fast. Stephanie White, again, we wanted no parts of your Connecticut offense. No parts of it. We wanted the defense. That's it. That's it. And at this point, I am missing Christy Sides, guys. I'm going to be completely honest with you. Once Christy Sides figured out that she needed to play Caitlyn's style and let Caitlyn do Caitlyn, things was running well. I got to be honest with you. And it was must-see television. Must-see television.
As the team grappled with its fundamental offensive identity crisis, a more insidious and alarming pattern began to emerge, casting a dark cloud over the team's future. The suspicious frequency of Caitlyn Clark's injuries since joining the Fever. This is a player who, throughout her entire college career, had been an ironclad presence, missing not a single game. Yet just weeks into her professional debut, she's been sidelined for 6 crucial contests this season. 6 games missed for a player who had never once been absent from the court. The timing is deeply suspicious, the frequency is profoundly alarming, and the pattern is rapidly becoming impossible to ignore.
Sophie Cunningham goes in the post-game press conference and confirms what we've all known all along. This locker room is split, and she uses the term different islands going on in this locker room. It turns out that Christy Sides and all of those toilet paper mummy activities, all those scavenger hunt activities, the wiffle ball coming back from the Olympic break, it turned out that those stupid games actually played a big part along with Erica Wheeler's veteran leadership, keeping this locker room, keeping this team together. We got no Erica Wheeler. We got no Christy Sides, the chaperone. We got none of that. And Sophie Cunningham confirms what we've all...
Her most recent setback, a nagging groin injury, occurred with just 12 seconds remaining in a game the Fever had already decisively won against Seattle. The question echoes, why was the franchise's most valuable player, a generational talent, even on the court during what was unequivocally garbage time? That irrefutably is a coaching decision, and it directly, unequivocally led to Clark getting hurt. Even more frustrating indeed, almost unfathomable, has been Stephanie White's disconcertingly detached and, frankly, tone-deaf responses to Clark's escalating health issues.
Case may be, this team is looking like it's out of control. We got DeWanna Bonner missing in action. Fans putting out missing posters of her. She's unfollowing people, pretty much deleting all of her Indiana Fever posts. It's looking freaking spooky. Now, I've been wanting to try to get...
When pressed about Clark's groin injury, White casually admitted she found out late last night, and then, with a stunning lack of urgency, repeatedly stated she stays in her lane when it comes to medical decisions. This apparent disconnect from her star player's health status, this shocking lack of urgency, it's all painting an increasingly stark picture of a coach who is demonstrably not in control of her team's well-being, nor its most precious asset. And as if the internal perils of mismanaged health weren't enough, an even larger systemic battle for protection was tragically being lost on the unforgiving court.
Give them a benefit of the doubt, bro. Lynn Dunn, Stephanie White, the whole front office, even Kelly Cristobal. I thought they really had some things going when they brought in.
Beyond the perplexing coaching decisions regarding player health, the WNBA itself continues its astonishing, almost criminal failure to adequately protect its biggest star. Caitlyn Clark has been relentlessly on the receiving end of flagrant fouls, cheap shots, and a level of physical play that would make an NHL enforcer blush, pushing the boundaries of what is acceptable in a professional sports league.
Year, Stephanie White overmanages. She micromanages. And she likes pace. Christy Sides didn't give a damn about pace. They were the fastest team in the WNBA. Do we give Stephanie a second look? Because I think this season is a failure. I didn't expect them to lose 6 games all year, let alone 6 or 7 games right out.
The recent Connecticut Sun game perfectly encapsulated the sheer absurdity and injustice of the situation. After Clark took a brutal hit to the face and was subsequently knocked down, she, unbelievably, was the one who received a technical foul. Stephanie White, to her credit, has publicly spoken out about the officiating, but her words ring hollow, almost performative, when her own tactical decisions are consistently, negligently putting Clark in harm's way, exacerbating her vulnerability. As the physical onslaught against Clark continued unchecked, with officials seemingly unwilling or unable to intervene effectively, Sophie Cunningham, emerging as Clark's fiercely protective on-court guardian, has been forced to take matters into her own hands. She issued an almost desperate ultimatum to referees, warning them explicitly that she would step in if they continued their dereliction of duty and failed to protect Clark. When your own players are compelled to issue such dire warnings to officials because the coaching staff cannot or will not keep their star players safe, something is fundamentally, irreparably broken within the very core of the organization. And speaking of broken, the cracks are not merely showing on the court. They are getting wider, tearing through the very foundation of the Fever locker room. Sophie Cunningham's post-game comments after a recent crushing loss to the Sparks were particularly revealing, almost shockingly candid. "We have our own islands as one of the leaders of the team," she lamented. "I got to do a better job of grouping people." Islands in a locker room? That is not the language of a unified team fighting with a singular, common purpose. That is the chilling language of a fractured group, profoundly struggling to find its identity, its cohesion, its very soul, under a coaching staff that is manifestly failing to provide clear direction, emotional support, or a unifying vision. This starkly contrasts with the previous season, where under former coach Christy Sides, unconventional, almost whimsical team-building activities, everything from toilet paper mummy activities to waffle ball games and scavenger hunts, along with the steadying presence of veteran leadership like Erica Wheeler, somehow managed to keep the team together, a quirky but unified force. Now, without those chaperones, without that intrinsic glue, the team is visibly, tragically unraveling, confirming what many insiders had long suspected: a profound internal schism. The undeniable, stark reality staring the Indiana Fever in the face is an abysmal 8-8 record, a mark of pure mediocrity screaming its indictment in the loudest possible way. This is not just any team. This is a franchise that strategically added significant, impactful talent in the offseason, successfully retained its promising young core pieces, and brought in a seemingly proven, highly acclaimed coach. Yet, instead of confidently taking the next logical step toward championship contention, they are inexplicably treading water, or, more accurately, actively regressing. The eye test for any discerning observer is even more damning than the cold statistics on the stat sheet. They are routinely blowing critical leads in the fourth quarter, visibly failing to execute in crunch time, and displaying a bewildering, almost complete lack of identity on both ends of the floor, When you possess a generational talent of Caitlyn Clark's magnitude, complemented by an all-star center in Aaliyah Boston, and supported by a roster meticulously built to complement their unique skills, an 8-8 record isn't merely disappointing. It's an unforgivable indictment of the coaching staff's palpable inability to maximize this abundant talent, to harness its immense potential. The pressure isn't just mounting on Stephanie White, it is now relentlessly shifting, weighing heavily on the entire front office structure that spearheaded the audacious decision to hire her. Kelly Krauskopf, the president of basketball operations, who championed White's return and her controversial system, now faces profound existential questions about whether she made the right choice, whether her vision for the team was catastrophically flawed. When you are entrusted with a generational talent like Caitlyn Clark, there is absolutely no margin for error. Every single decision, every strategic system implemented, every player acquisition, every subtle nuance of team management should, without exception, be made with one overarching singular question in mind. Does this unequivocally help Caitlyn Clark dominate basketball games? Has this fundamental principle, the very essence of building a championship contender around a singular talent, been abandoned? The uncomfortable truth, one that Fever fans are finally, painfully starting to accept, is that Stephanie White's system, her ingrained coaching philosophy, is demonstrably incompatible with this current roster, specifically with its transcendent star. The high-assist, motion-heavy offense that proved so effective with her Connecticut Sun teams, with their different personnel and playing style, fundamentally does not translate, does not align with a team built around a dynamic, score-first, revolutionary talent like Clark. White arrived preaching a specific gospel of pace, perimeter shooting, and defensive toughness. Instead, the Fever are inexplicably playing slower basketball, taking significantly worse shots, and consistently failing to create the easy, fluid scoring opportunities that should, by all rights, come naturally when you have a player of Clark's unparalleled caliber orchestrating the offense. The most damning evidence, the ultimate indictment, is heartbreakingly clear. Caitlyn Clark and Aaliyah Boston, the two cornerstones, look their absolute best, their most dominant, when they instinctively ignore the rigid system entirely and simply play basketball, relying on their prodigious talent and innate chemistry. This year, Stephanie White is accused of overmanaging and micromanaging, smothering the very creativity and freedom that define her star players, tragically stifling their collective potential. Here is the stark reality that should genuinely terrify every single Fever fan, a truth that echoes through the annals of sports history. Championship windows do not and will never stay open forever. Caitlyn Clark is undeniably in her prime, an unparalleled force whose talent demands immediate maximization. Aaliyah Boston is rapidly developing into an all-star center, a dominant interior presence, and the supporting cast around them is, arguably, as good and deep as it has ever been in the franchise's recent memory. But if the coaching staff cannot, or will not, figure out how to harness and maximize this immense talent, if they cannot, or will not, build a system that unequivocally puts Clark in the optimal position to dominate, to unleash her full, devastating arsenal, then this entire ambitious experiment, this tantalizing promise of a dynasty, will be remembered as nothing short of a massive, unforgivable failure. The pressure is mounting to an unbearable degree, the expectations are clearer than the brightest day, and the once boundless patience of Fever fans is now dangerously thin, fraying at the edges. Stephanie White, in that initial intoxicating moment, looked like the perfect, undeniable choice when she was hired. But perfect choices in the unforgiving arena of professional sports simply do not lead to abysmal 8-8 records and irreparably fractured locker rooms. Based on the disquieting evidence we have witnessed so far, Fever fans have every conceivable right to be absolutely furious about that looming, terrifying possibility. The question, then, is no longer whether fundamental changes need to be made within the Indiana Fever organization. It is whether those changes, those desperate, necessary adjustments, will come swiftly enough before it is tragically, irrevocably too late. Because right now, in this unfolding saga, the Indiana Fever are demonstrably failing Caitlyn Clark, and that, in the world of professional basketball, is a sin that should never, ever be forgiven.